Thank you very much for staying on. Welcome back. Some financial stakeholders have been speaking on the issue of domestic revenue mobilization and how the country can raise enough revenue to meet increasing expenditure patterns. Economist Dr. Ebo Duncan and tax consultant and legal practitioner William Owusu-Dimitia shared their thoughts on practical solutions to this situation during last night's edition of PM Express on JoyNews.
One key measure that is often touted as a means of meeting Ghana's revenue target is laying emphasis on the informal sector. The sector already pays a number of indirect taxes, but there is always the debate about how the country can tax income for more revenue. Dr. Ebo Duncan is an economist and holds a different view.
We should know that at times when we say that the informal sector, they don't pay taxes, which tax are we talking about? It's income tax that a lot of them don't pay. But when it comes to indirect taxes, they pay VAT, whatever they consume, which is VAT, dutiable, they pay, and all this. So I think when they are talking about they are not paying taxes with the income tax. And the reason why I think that the informal sector is not a game changer is that if you look at the GDP, the informal sector contributes less than 30%. And if you take figures from 2013 to 2018, even 2018, the informal sector contributed 27% to GDP. Now, if you take agric alone is around 21%. And agric is non-taxed. And so if you take agric from it, then you get the other informal sector being around 7%. And even some of them are paying taxes already.
The issue of the authority which collects the revenue also comes to the fore. The Ghana Revenue Authority is mandated by law to ensure collections are done effectively and efficiently. But are there some things that can change? Tax consultant and legal practitioner William Owusu-Dimitia shares his thought.
I think the GRA Act was passed in 2009, which consolidated 3 distinct revenue agencies, the IRS, then the Value-Added Tax Service, and then the Customs, Excise and Preventive Service. 10 years down the line, 2019, there is reviewed some institutional challenges. Now, the integration, as far as I'm concerned, has not fully developed. So, for example, if I import an item into Ghana, I expect that the moment I am required to key my taxpayer identification number, then I use it as the consignee and I clear the goods. Domestic tax, which is those looking at income tax, VAT and the rest, must automatically know that William has bought in goods worth 100,000. And so if William is to do his sales revenue, and the sales revenue shows about, say, 80,000, given that he sold all the goods, it means there's a disparity between the value I declared at the port for income for duty purposes and the amount I'm declaring as income tax. That integration, that networking, that talking, is still not being fully realized. Yes, you can always go back to GCMS and get it, but it's supposed to have worked in real time.
The 2020 budget has been presented and the debate as to how to meet the current revenue target continues. Philip Namfuri's report for Joy Business.
Now, Ghana and South Africa have introduced a bi-national commission to improve trade relationship between the two countries. The Deputy South African High Commissioner to Ghana, Tapelo Mudamani, says the move will further emphasize cooperation and hard work to help eradicate poverty and create jobs. He spoke with Joy Business at this year's Ghana-South Africa Business Chamber Annual General Meeting held in Accra.
The Binational Commission, according to the Deputy High Commissioner of South Africa, Tapelo Mudamani, is a platform for the two countries to forge ahead with cooperation, including political issues that may concern their bilateral relations.
Let me point to the fact that right now, our relations are through what we call a PJCC, Permanent Joint Commission for Cooperation, which will be elevated to the Binational Commission, chaired by the two presidents. I think it is indicative of the growing relations between our two countries, in that it will address a whole spectrum of issues in different spheres, in trade, defense, and a whole lot of other issues. They will be addressed at a presidential level.
The Ghana-South Africa Business Chamber AGM saw the election of new executives for the chamber led by Grant Verba as its new president. Mr. Weber says his outfit will position its members to take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement.
I think the relationships from government level are good and improving, and then this has an impact on trade. But we certainly look forward next year to the African Free Trade Zone, which should be of benefit to all manufacturers in Africa, and especially between the two countries of Ghana and South Africa. So we've only just been voted in, but we need to put a plan together which would be proactive and allow our members to take advantage and leverage any of the opportunities that are there.
The new executive of the Ghana South Africa Business Chamber will, among others, help champion the cause of environmental issues in accordance with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
Now, Senior Research Fellow at the Economic Policy Research Center, Dr. Madina Guloba, says the inputs of citizens must be explored before a national industrialization policy is finalized. Dr. Guloba spoke with Joy Business at a regional conference on economic transformation as part of this year's Africa Industrialization Week celebration. Bismarck Ausa's report again read to you.
The Regional Conference on Economic Transformation, Decent Work and Green Economy drew participants from academia, trade unions, experts and government officials to stimulate debates on the impact of industrialization on the African environment. After delivering a communique on the topic, Senior Research Fellow at the Economic Policy Research Center of Uganda, Dr. Madina Guloba, urged government to solicit the views of citizens in establishing industrialization policies.
You cannot develop or cannot transform when your people do not understand what you have, the vision, or the vision of the economy. So to put people on this transformative path, they have to be part of the journey. So you plan for change infrastructure, they do not understand how they are part of it. So how are they part of this growth? How are they part of the big buildings that are taking place, of the railways that you're creating? People need to be part of it and understand it.
Dr. Guloba also says African countries should move industrialization from the exploitation of labor.
I think the issues around industrialization is not necessarily like the full-blown issue, because at the end of the day, the sweet shops, so we have the cook vendors, it's because of issues of informality. And informality is over 80% in most African economies. And the issues around industrialization and no sweet job creation, it's not because of lack of because they desire to be in the sweet shops. I think it's because of lack of alternatives. And because that lack of alternatives is what is creating the high level of informality.
Meanwhile, Deputy Director of Labour Research and Policy Institute at the Trade Unions Congress, Mary Karimu, says government is not doing enough with tariff charges on imports to protect the local industries.
If we take the poultry case, and we make the poultry case today, for instance, within the WTO, Ghana has an advantage to increase its poultry tariff to 99%, and you still remain within the band. But as it is now, we are charging 20%. And it's the same with tomatoes, it's the same with rice. The data is there. We are saying that this is unacceptable and we need to do something about it. We know there are high import lobbies in the country. It's very difficult, but at least we need to start from somewhere.
The three-day conference on economic transformation, decent work and green economy was organized by the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, the Trades Union Congress and the Frederick Ebert Stiftang Ghana. Bismarck Awuse's report for Joy Business.
Now, LMI Holdings says its 22,000-acre Dawa Industrial City project in the Greater Accra region is uniquely placed to satisfy the needs of both domestic and foreign investors. Out of this expanse, 2,000 acres will be used for industrial purposes, while LMI Holdings and Ghana Free Zones Authority have also agreed to demarcate 1,000 acres as a free zones enclave with 200 acres dedicated for a garment village for investors in the textile industry. Executive Director of LMI Holdings, Ernest Owusu-Aferi, disclosed this when Global Garment Brands leaders paid a visit. There's more in this report.
The Dawa Industrial Project in the Ningo Prampram district of the Greater Accra region is the biggest in the country. This is attracting prospective investors across the globe, with the latest being those in the garments industry. With its own power substation, fiber broadband data facilities, planned solar and water treatment projects, has unique benefits. For Executive Director of LMI, Ernesto Usuafari, Dawa Industrial Park has unparalleled match with the West African sub-region.
That's because the quality of amenities that we provide is unparalleled. You cannot match it anywhere. If you talk about electricity infrastructure, which is usually the basic primary requirement of the investor, LMI Holdings and its subsidiaries have invested heavily in privately funded electricity distribution infrastructure. We own 2 of the largest distribution substations in the country. This qualifies our industrial estates to be able to accommodate industries of any capacity, any size, including the most energy-intensive industries. So we handle industries from food processing to steel, cement factories, any kind of industry we are able to accommodate in our industrial park. And very few other industrial estates within Ghana and the sub-region can compete.
Meanwhile, Ernesto Usuafari is assuring investors in the garment sector of availability of raw materials in and outside Ghana.
Cotton, for example, is produced in Burkina Faso, and the railway line that is currently under construction to the Volta Lake will come into play, whereby the Volta Lake is used to transport containerized cargo from Burkina Faso, and this could be containers of cotton that can easily be brought down to Mpakadan on the southern banks of the Volta Lake, and then by rail from there to the Dawa industrial zone. So to answer your question, we can't do everything, but we are uniquely placed to facilitate the work of specialized industries, like some of these big leaders in the garments sector. Well, we're saying that at the Dawa industrial zone, we are ready for you. You come here, and from day one, you can break ground and start working on your factory.
Has obtained first-hand information on accommodation, power and labor in the question and answer session.
Let's turn our attention now to the oil and gas sector. The Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, has backed calls for a national industrial trade policy to support local content in the upstream petroleum sector. The regulator of the industry has indicated the country's weak industrial base is making it difficult for the country to meet its local content targets. CEO of the AGI, Seth Chumakwabwa, says some of the oil money could be strategically used to support manufacturing. He spoke with Joy Business at the 6th edition of the Local Content Conference and Exhibition in Takrady.
We indeed had one. We had a national industrial policy, which incorporated different departments, different agencies, different ministries, each of them having to play a critical role to make it integrated and make it work. I don't think it is actually being, it's taking a different form now, so we need to come back to it. And you are right, we have a weak industrial base. And I made a presentation today that if you look at the trend, since the oil and gas came in, it has increased industry's contribution to GDP, which is good, but it has not driven manufacturing along. It means that whilst we are making good revenue from the oils, we are not actually translating it into manufacturing growth. And therefore, at some point when you want to promote local content, the manufacturing to support local content is not really jarring. So what it means is that we need to have a strategy of pushing some of the oil money into supporting manufacturing and bringing it up so that a lot of the things we are importing, we can produce, both for the oil industry, for mining, and for all other sectors, to make our manufacturing sector very strong.
Meanwhile, local content director at the Energy Commission, Dr. Ishmael Aka, has tied a sound business environment to building competitive indigenous firms in the upstream sector. He called for a deliberate effort to reduce the high cost of doing business at the Petroleum Commission's Local Content Conference, which is in its last day today.
So high cost of doing business. You take power, for instance, electricity. The average electricity tariff for manufacturing sector in Ghana is around 16 cents per kilowatt hour. The average for Chinese manufacturing firm is 4 cents. The average for a Nigerian manufacturing firm is 5 cents. So it is quite expensive to do business in Ghana. So what it means is that we may not be competitive in terms of cost. There are still land management challenges. In Takoradi, in Accra, you buy land, you want to do some oil project, something. if you don't start within 3 months, the next time you go, somebody is building on your land. And if you don't take care, they will beat you as well. Then manpower that is relevant to the industry, infrastructure in some cases. Then the local content should cover the value chain. So we are looking at the backward linkages, service companies supplying the core companies, and the forward linkages. When we produce the oil, how do we add value to the oil to even use some and export some?
And still within the Western region, a 7-member local committee has been inaugurated for the Minerals Development Fund to facilitate socio-economic development of mining communities. The inauguration is in fulfillment of Section 19 of Act 912 to establish local management committees to implement aspects of the mining community development scheme. Natalia Kwansa reports.
The government in 2016 passed the Minerals Development Fund Act 912. The main objective of the act was to provide financial resources for the direct benefit of mining communities, holders of interest in land within mining communities, traditional and local government authorities within mining communities, and institutions responsible for the development of mining in Ghana. Deputy Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Benito Usubio, in an interview said the distressed state of communities in which mining companies operate is nothing short of a disgrace, and there is an urgent need to change the situation.
Yes, we understand that the mineral royalties previously they were all collected and deposited in the consolidated account. But then there were a lot of agitation and then concern to the fact that the royalties, the fund, was not getting down to the local level to the benefit of the local communities. As such, with the coming into being of the Act 912, which is the Mineral Development Fund, a provision in the Act was made for the communities to have a committee that would administer the 20% share of the royalties that previously went to the district assemblies and then the local communities. So basically they are to help with managing and administering that particular fund, and at the same time to ensuring that they collaborate with the local communities in selecting certain very tangible and valuable project initiatives.
Vice Chancellor of the University of Mines and Technology, Professor Kuma, in an address at the inauguration ceremony said the inability of mining companies to meet all the demands often leads to strained relationship between mining companies and their host communities, with associated adverse effects on mining companies.
Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, in this country, community development is often regarded by local communities in the mining areas as the most important part of corporate social responsibility or corporate social investment, to the extent that oftentimes community development is perceived to be a statutory responsibility of mining companies. Consequently, communities in the mining areas demand for more, sometimes prohibitively expensive, contributions towards the development of their communities.
The committee would be resourced according to Section 18 through the 20% mineral royalties distribution under Section 21(3)(b) and donation from mining companies and other related businesses. In Athalia Kwansa, Joy Business, Western Region.
and we shall be bringing some more mining stories in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, that's it for the Marketplace. Many thanks for your company throughout the week. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Enjoy the weekend.